All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to NHL 26. We're going to be starting a brand new series here on Twitch, and it's about the Toronto Maple Leafs. So the dumpster fire that is the Toronto Maple Leafs. I am a huge Toronto sports fan, for better or worse, and right now with the Maple Leafs, it could not be much worse. But I'll be honest, I'm one of the few people that actually thinks that the Leafs should have tried to see what they could build around Phil Kessel and Dion Phaneuf back in the day. I'm one of those few people that thinks they should have kept Paul Maurice as their coach for longer than just a season when they just got rid of Matt Sundin. So I may not have the same beliefs as a lot of Leafs fans, a lot of Leafs Nation might. So this will be interesting. Really looking forward to this series quite a bit. As you can tell, I'm a huge Maple Leafs fan, huge NHL fan. Really looking forward to this. So without further ado, let's get started with setting up this franchise mode. So we're going to go authentic here. And for the GM name, we're going to go with Jams. And we're going to go with the Toronto Maple Leafs. So as you can see, part of being the general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs is also working with the Toronto Marlies. We are not going to skip that or skip over that part of this franchise mode. We are going to be very deeply involved with this franchise, not just at the NHL level, but also at the AHL level with the Marlies. We're going to try to improve this club, not just at the NHL level, but also at the AHL level with the Marlies. So really, this is going to be a very in-depth franchise mode series. We are going to do everything we can to try to make this team better. Will that be a retool? Will it be a rebuild? I mean, in reality, that's what the Maple Leafs are asking themselves right now. For those of you that may not be as familiar with the NHL, the problem with the Maple Leafs is that they had a star player with Mitch Marner, but even with Mitch Marner, they weren't winning a Stanley Cup. But what made matters worse was that they lost him essentially for nothing. And for a franchise to lose a star player for nothing, it really hurts. And basically, the Leafs have to try to recover from that with a lot fewer draft picks than most teams in the NHL. So that's where we are. And that's what we're trying to fix. So this is going to be quite the franchise mode. And I think if we have success, I should probably apply to Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment to try to become their actual general manager. I'll let you guys decide on that. But let's get started. We are not going to realign the divisions as much as I'd like to avoid Tampa Bay, Florida, Boston. Now you've got the upstarts, Ottawa, Buffalo, and even Detroit and Montreal. No disrespect to Montreal. I actually should have mentioned them first as an upstart because they are having an incredible season. So we are going to do owner mode, which means that essentially we could get fired. Hopefully we don't. We will not be doing a fantasy draft. We want to start with what we have and try to fix it. It'd be way too easy to do a fantasy draft. That actually would put us in a better position. The Maple Leafs are in a very tough position, so we want to mimic that and try to improve the team where we can. The salary cap will be on. CPU traits will be on. Player morale will be on. The fog of war, I'm not a fan of that. I'm going to turn that off. I mean, let's be honest. It's going to be hard enough to fix this team. We don't need to make it impossible. Head coach edits the lines. I'm all for that. Auto staff manager. I don't want to get too much in the weeds with that. I want to focus on the roster. I would like to see what the assistant GMs, the CPU or the AI, as Keith Pelly would call it. We'll see what the AI does for free agents. I want to be involved with like the trades aspect of the team. So let's say they sign people that I'm not really thinking are fits. I could trade them out. I could trade them for picks. There's lots of different things we could do with that. I'm going to let the AI, if you will, the assistant GMs, I'm going to let them decide who to sign. I'll decide ultimately if they're worth keeping. Same thing with draft picks. Relocation, as bad as the Leafs are right now, let's face it, they're never going to relocate from this city. And auto owner mode, this allows the CPU to control all of the budgets and finances. That's fine with me. My focus is going to be on the roster specifically. So let's take a look at the rules and settings. I don't want to have a puck highlight, so I'm going to turn that off. Difficulty, we're going to switch to Superstar. Just want to check to make sure that that went through. So difficulties at Superstar, so that's good. Quick settings. Let's try 10-minute periods. Actually, I want to see if we could get away with 5 minutes. We'll see what that looks like. We could always change it later. Injuries, I'm going to have off. Auto sign free agents on. Auto save I'm going to turn off in case we don't want it that way. 25 years for the franchise mode. CPU trades are on. Superstars, excellent. Draft pick, I wish I could change this, but I'm going to keep it real. We'll keep it authentic and make it very difficult. Salary cap is on. Trade difficulties medium. Waivers is on. Relocation is off. Fog of war is off. Awesome. And if we look at the advanced settings, we're going to go with the latest gameplay version. Gameplay sliders are the latest, so we'll keep it as that. We'll see how that rolls. But that's looking pretty good to me. So let's go ahead. I don't know, 5 minutes. Let's try it. That might be too short, but we'll try it. We're going to keep the salary cap on. Okay, so here we are. So we see the franchise overview there. Very profitable. The fans seem to be pretty happy. The owners happy. Locker room chemistry is okay. the weekly calendar there, and stats and information on the right side. So they've made a lot of changes in previous NHL games here to how it all looks. And I think first and foremost, because we do have Fire the GM mode on, let's take a look at the owner goals and see if we're aligned on what we want to do, what the owner wants to do, because if we're not aligned, that could end in a train wreck. So the primary goal, to be a serious contender, I want us to improve our top 6 forward group. Obviously, that's something that I want to do as well, so that's not going to be a problem. And we have until the trade deadline to do that, so plenty of time. Secondary goals, he expects us to boost fan happiness to at least 94. I think it was already at 87. '84. So boost it by 10. We'll see what we can do about that. Our concessions need an upgrade, increase the level by 1. So he wants us to upgrade the concessions. We might be able to do that right now, actually. Upgrades in progress. So right out of the gate, we've completed one of the goals of the owner. So that's always good. Always want to impress Rogers. In terms of stretch goals, I would like for us to have at least 4 home playoff games. So essentially, if we get home ice advantage in the first round and it goes to 7 games, we'll hit that target. Obviously, if we go into the second round, we will hit that target. So that's basically where we want to be in terms of like a stretch goal. We're already about 25% of the way to a completely happy owner. So that's not bad. I'm going to go ahead and save. And the one thing I'm not sure about is how to switch it to the AHL. Figured it out. So there are no games, looks like, in the preseason for the AHL, which makes sense because those games should probably be at the NHL level. To be honest, I'm not too worried about the preseason. So I'm going to go ahead and simulate us. This will be the only part that I do simulate. We will be playing all of the games. So we'll take a look at what the owner has to say here. It's a new season, so let's get right down to business. I have set goals for the upcoming season that I would like you to accomplish. Have a look and ensure you're clear on my expectations. Remember, I will be evaluating you based on how well you perform in these goals. So we already did that. Good job. I expect goals to be accomplished when I set them. Keep doing this and you'll be a shoo-in for an extension when the time comes. So we've already passed the concession upgrade. They've added $40,000 to available funds to use this year. So now the head coach, Craig Berube, wants to start a conversation. So let's see what he has to say. So he says, "Hello, GM. Together we have great opportunity. We have a great opportunity, I should say, to lead this team to greatness. Our journey starts now. Let's establish our goals and make the most of the season." To be honest, I think a conversation like this, you want to start off with the basics, which would be the preseason. What our players should focus on during the preseason. So they're looking at, it seems like endurance, acceleration, speed, puck control. To be honest, I really like the idea of 5-on-5 focused, but I don't know yet, are we going to be on the power play a lot? Are we going to be on the penalty kill? So that's kind of tough. I think maybe team bonding is something that we could look at. Conditioning. I'd say let's go with conditioning, potentially. Take a look at what the differences are. So I would say maybe team bonding could help morale. Five v five focused. I keep going back to that one. That seems to be like the best option. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with 5v5 focused on this one. So the good news is it looks like Craig Berube, the head coach, agrees with me. It sounds good to him. All of the players who make the team will have this focus of being a good team at even strength, so that is good. So we could end the conversation, but we also have the option to look at a season goal. So I'm going to say I agree. What are your thoughts on this roster? And if we take a look at what the coach says here, he's saying, looking at the roster on paper, this team is good enough to make the playoffs this season. That is my goal for this team. So in comparison to what the owner is looking for, he's coming up short with his expectations. So I'm going to push back on the coach, and I'm going to say I think we should aim higher. Our goal should be to get to the Stanley Cup final. And the coach says our roster may need some upgrades for that to happen, but I'm on board with that goal. Obviously, this roster needs upgrades. So I think as much as he said that to probably slam management, I'm in agreement with him. So that's on me to try to, build this roster to be a contender. But ultimately, we need to get to at least the second round of the playoffs to please the ownership group. So I need the coach to be on board with that, and luckily that seemed to be the case. So if you look at the salary cap, The maximum salary cap is $95.5 million. So that is basically the limits that we have. I'm not too worried about the floor because this is not going to be a franchise that is trying to get to the floor. So the owner says, I've updated our goals based on the current status of the team. I will continue to evaluate your goals as the season goes on. You can view your updated goals in the owner goals. So let's take a look at that. So remember, we did complete the concessions upgrade. So that's 25% of the work done. You can see the owner's happiness is at like 99%, which is really good. He still wants us to improve the top 6 forward group, which I totally agree with. He does still expect us to boost the fan happiness to at least 94. And the stretch goal now is he wants us to make round 1 of the playoffs. So I pushed really hard on the coach, thinking that the goal was to have 4 home games. And he's changed that already to just making round 1 of the playoffs. So we'll see if pushing the coach was worth it or not. Do I regret it? Probably not, because I think we should try to be a contender, even though the roster is not quite there. So for salary cap compliance, it says teams must be salary cap compliant to start the season. Any team that isn't will automatically be adjusted on October 5th to fit within the salary cap. That's fine with me. Players on waivers. So waivers will be in effect starting October 6th. Please designate your players to the minors before then. Otherwise, all the waiver eligible players will need to clear waivers to be assigned to their minor league affiliate. So that's a good reminder for us to make moves, get those players to the Marlies that we want to send down, make sure they don't have to go through waivers where we could lose them. Let's take a look at the activity feed, because I think I saw a player that I wasn't aware was on our team. It's possible it was signed by the assist. Yeah. So there were some free agents available before the preseason started, and it looks like quite a few players were signed. So let's take a look at that first. So it looks like Jack Johnson went to Chicago. For our team in particular, the assistant general managers, the AI, if you will, they signed Ryan Suter to a 1-year contract. I'll be taking a look at that because that's interesting on paper, but I don't know necessarily what that looks like on this team or where Ryan Suter is in terms of his career, where he is overall in terms of his rating. So we'll see if it's a good fit. If it's not, potentially he could be traded. Potentially he could play for the Marlies. We'll take a look at that. Vlasic signs with Vancouver. Ryan O'Rourke signs with St. Louis. Jeff Skinner signs with the Rangers. TJ Brody signs with the Senators. Athanasiou signs with New Jersey. Martin Jones signs with Nashville. Jack Campbell signs with Winnipeg. And those are the major signings. There are no trades as of yet. Makes sense. The season's just started. I'm honestly surprised there were so many free agent signings. So let's take a look. Maybe the best way to look at this is to look at the contract situation. And we'll take a look at the goalies first. So, for the Toronto Maple Leafs, I wonder maybe if we can see the whole system. No, so it's either the Leafs or the Marlies to look at one at a time. So if we look at the Leafs for goaltending, we've got Joseph Woll, we've got Anthony Stolarz. Pretty even there. Obviously, Woll is a bit younger. And you're looking at least 3 years of control. 5 years for Stolarz. And in the system, we've got Hildeby. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce this guy's name. And Peksa. So Peksa's just there for 1 year before he becomes restricted as a free agent. And that's unfortunate because, to be honest, the way that this is set up, I don't think he's going to get any playing time. So he may just end up going as a free agent. We've got at least 3 years of control here. So the goaltending is pretty locked up, which is a rarity for the Maple Leafs. So we'll take that. In terms of the Toronto Maple Leafs, looking at the Marlies first, we do have a few free agents. Coming up, but none of them, actually there are a few that are willing to talk about extensions. We'll let the assistant general manager figure out if they want to do that or not. We do have about 16 million in cap space, which I would imagine is because of Mitch Marner leaving. That is quite a bit of cap space. We'll see if we can use that. And if we take a look at the forward group, there's a few free agents that are coming up after this season. 3 of them are interested in possibly signing an extension, so we'll let the assistant general managers work on that. I gotta be honest, I do like a couple of these players that are not signed. I think I'm gonna sign them. Or actually, I'll let the assistant general managers figure that out. That's okay. We'll be focusing more on the trades. So if we go back to the defensemen, yeah, Sutter is an interesting name, but at this point in his career, at the age of 40, he's not going to be able to contribute to this team in any meaningful way. So I don't know. I think he might be somebody that we try to trade out, to be honest, because even on the Marlies, he would just be taking up space at his age. he's not going to be developing any further, so not a lot here to work on. And if we take a look at the forward group, 2 coming restricted free agents there. Yarncrook does not want to extend, at least not at this point. Let's take a look at the free agents. I know a lot of free agents already signed, but just to take a look and see what's available. Nothing useful there. Goaltending wise, nothing really useful there either, so we're not really missing out other than the players that have already signed. So if we take a look at roster moves here. Actually, before we do, let's take a look at what the coach is thinking. So we'll start off by looking at the goaltending. So we've got Joseph Wall, we've got Anthony Stolarz as the 1-2 punch. So no surprises there, and that makes sense. If we take a look at the blue line, we've got Morgan Riley, Chris Tanov, we've got Brandon Carlo, OEL, Jake McCabe, and Troy Stetcher, who they picked up off of waivers in real life. And then if we go ahead and take a look at the offense, so we've got Matthew Nyes on the top line with Matthews and Nylander. We've also got Max Domi on the second line with John Tavares and Easton Cowan. Then we've got Michael Pezzetta on the third line with Lorentz and with Michelli. And then at the fourth line, we've got Dakota Joshua, Nick Robertson, and Yarncrook. So that leaves us looking at who is scratched, and potentially are these players that we can send to the Marlies, or are these players that maybe we need to trade out trying to get draft picks or something in compensation for. So we've got Benoit, who is 27. I think sending him to the Marlies would make a lot of sense because he's still young enough where he could develop. Same thing with Philip Myers, I think. So those guys can be sent to the Marlies. And that leaves us with what the assistant general managers have done, which is sign a 40-year-old who's not good enough to play on this team. I'm not going to be sending Ryan Sutter to the Marlies. I'm going to see if we can make a trade to get some draft picks or some type of compensation for him, because he's just not a good fit on this team. So let's see if we can find a trade. For Ryan Sutter. And here we go. So there are some offers, which is good because he just wasn't going to fit on this team. So a 6th-round pick from the Boston Bruins for 2027. 6th-round pick from Chicago for 2027. 5th-round pick for Minnesota in this upcoming draft. So far that is easily the best offer. Minnesota is still the best offer. The Rangers, so Minnesota and the Rangers offering the same thing. I think, in terms of like what team could give us the best possible pick, at least based on what's going on in reality, I think might actually be the Rangers. So we'll take a 5th-round pick from 2026. And by doing that, we also clear up almost $1 million in cap space as well. So that just makes so much sense. And it's going to drop morale on the team, obviously. But it was a mistake for our assistant GMs to make that signing. And we had to clean that up. So it was a necessary move. So that's one thing done. So we basically signed a player to get a 5th-round pick. Not too bad, but, you know, ideally you'd like to see us sign somebody that's going to help the team. So if we go back to the defense, we're going to be looking at Myers and Benoit. So Benoit's going to go down to the Marlies. Myers also. So if we go to the Marlies, and we take a look at what we've got here. So we've got Hildeby as our starter for the Marlies. And Archer there as the backup. And then on defense, Benoit and Myers are right there, which is exactly what we wanted. We've got Matt Benning there, Mermis, Thrun, and Niemela. And then on offense, we have William Nylander's brother, Alexander. We've got Benoit Grohl there, Travis Boyd, Logan Shaw, Lethierry, Jacob Quillen, Brandon Baddock, Reese Johnson, Mark Johnstone, Tverberg, Ben King, and Barbolini there. And here are the scratches that we have for the Marlies. And I think if we look at this, the effects of having Benoit and Myers with the Marlies is that it pushes these two out of playing and being dressed for the Marlies. But ideally, you want to have your best players, especially if they're young enough to be playing. I think it can only help the Marlies, to be honest. So I think it's worth it. So we're going to go ahead and save this file. And we're going to go ahead and look at the first game of the season. So the Pro Scout saying, I wouldn't trade away players that you recently added so quickly. It won't help your GM rep. That's okay. Again, it's a mess that we needed to fix, so I'm okay with that. Even though it did cost some locker room chemistry, that's fine with me. Alright, so when we come back, we're going to have the Maple Leafs going up against the Montreal Canadiens to start the season.